Heather, I know you dealt with a lot of the actual data in the report. Would you like to describe it?
Sure. So DEMOS, just to say a little bit about DEMOS, DEMOS is a nonpartisan, nonprofit public policy research and advocacy organization that works to advance a more robust democracy in America and more widely shared economic prosperity. And we've been around for 11 years, and for most of those years, we have really focused on the issue of this generation, actually, thankfully still, my generation, the youngest generation of Americans, which is the most diverse and the first in history to most likely not do better than their parents did as they enter adulthood. We really see this generation, the millennial generation, 18 to 34-year-olds roughly, as sort of the bellwether for the results of a series of economic policy decisions, most of which were made around the time that most of us on this stage were born, that have really made it a lot harder for people to work or educate their way into the middle class. And so this story is both about young people, but also about our country and our economic choices that are affecting everyone. But for this generation coming of age, sort of exclusively under this new economic paradigm, it's really having an effect that we went to take a look at in this report, The State of Young America. We wanted to both tell the story of what happened during the recession and where young people are now, and tell a broader generational contrast story. So throughout the report, which looks at data in 5 different areas, we compare how young people are doing today in 2010 or 2011, whenever the latest data is, with how essentially their parents were doing at the same point in their lives in 1980, 18 and 34-year-olds in 1980. And so that allows us to really show this generational comparison. And on the first factor that we looked at, jobs and the economy, the picture was really quite disturbing, because around the same time that many of us on the stage were born, and around the same time that this generation was getting its start, policymakers and corporate leaders in the country really sort of decided to, through labor policy, tax policy, trade policy, transform our country's economy from one that was a goods-producing economy to more of a knowledge and service economy. So in layman's or more vivid terms, we really transformed over the past now 40 years from an economy where the largest employer was GM with unionized middle-class jobs that could support a family on one income, to Walmart with non-union, low-wage, part-time, no benefit, no career ladder jobs. So that sort of snapshot, I think, gives a picture that if you want to drill into what's been going on with young Americans, you can really see that today the typical young man makes 10 cents less on the dollar than his father would have in 1980. Young women make 17 cents more on the dollar than their mothers did. But there are 2 important caveats to that story of progress. One is that their mothers, of course, in 1980 were much less likely to even be in the workforce, to have a college degree. And so making progress on their mother standards, great progress from a gender standpoint, but not in terms of an economic security standpoint. And importantly, young women today, even though they've made progress over a generation, still earn over $8,000 less in inflation-adjusted terms than young men did in 1980. So we are seeing a generational decline in terms of wages. Young people are much more likely to have part-time contingent work, more likely to not have benefits, pensions, health care. In fact, the only workers that we've seen have an increase in wages over this generational time period have been those with a college degree. Now, that would be fine had the trade-off from a goods-producing economy to a service and knowledge economy come hand in hand with a robust investment in education, right? If we're going to say that actually it's going to become harder for you not to get a middle-class life if you don't have a college degree, the country, you would think, would have said, okay, we're going to make it easier for people to get a college degree. And unfortunately, that's not what happened. In fact, at the same time that college education became the ticket to a middle-class life, our report shows that the country pulled back on investments in education and training on a per capita level. Average tuition today, college tuition, is 3 times higher than it was in 1980. I think we all know that, we all experience that, but really seeing that it has tripled over the course of a generation is quite stark. And in 1980, the maximum Pell Grant covered 69% of the cost of attendance. Today, it only covers 34% of the cost of attendance. So now, as a result, we have 2 out of 3 students graduating with student loan debt, an average of over $24,000. Last year, the total student loan debt in the country eclipsed the credit card debt of the entire nation, over $1 trillion. And of course, because of the recession and the incredible joblessness among young, even college graduates, we are now seeing default rates for student loans, which are not dischargeable in bankruptcy, go up over 30% over just the past 2 years. We also looked at, because I know we often think of young people as just students, but young people, 18 to 34, are also parents. They are also people who are likely to, start a family, buy a house, all of that. And so we really tried to look at the cost of living, the cost of raising a family, and found some really startling statistics there as well. But just in the interest of time, I'll just say quickly that over 40% of young households spend more than a third of their income on rent. And importantly, I think this always gets short shrift, but the cost of childcare, which is a young adult issue, paid family leave, all of that is an issue for young adults because people are on average 25 or 26 years old when they have their first child. The cost of childcare actually exceeds the cost of rent in most metropolitan areas, and it exceeds the cost of public college education in many, many states.